Yona was born in Vilna in 1925 and had a pleasant childhood living in a big house by a green bridge which still stands until today. He grew up in a family of 5 as the youngest out of 3 brothers. In September 1939, war broke out between Germany and Poland. The Germans quickly reached Vilna in a few days, and the SS soldiers began bombing the town. Yona remembered being at home with his older brother, Tuvia, while his parents were away on vacation and hearing the first explosions. The house was burned down, although Yona and his brother escaped. When his parents returned, they immediately packed whatever they could save and left to live with his uncle in a different location. But they were still captured by the Nazis, eventually caught up to them and forced them all into a ghetto.
The hunger inside the ghetto was unbearable, and Tuvia resorted to stealing from the local market in order to provide food. One day, he simply didn't return, and after searching the ghetto, the conclusion was drawn that the Nazis took him and other Jews to a concentration camp in a village called Ponari and killed them. The village was eventually turned into a death camp by the Nazis. Jews were brought in from Poland as well as other locations. Before the war, there were 75,000 Jews in Vilna and only 1,000 left after. In order to live and not die of starvation, Yona and his father left the ghetto for special jobs with the Germans as carpenters in exchange for food rations, which they hid in their clothes, as anyone who was caught bringing food into the ghetto was beaten. In order to understand the hunger, a food ration consisted of 300 grams of bread, flour, eggs, sugar, and salt. The ration was barely enough for one person for one day, but needed to be shared as one per family in the ghetto.
As the situation in the ghetto continued to worsen, Yona and his family found a way to flee to Belarus, where they thought they would finally be safe as the Nazis had not come there. They lived in the forest for a time, but eventually the Nazis came there as well. They beat Yona's father to death as he tried to run and sent his mother to a death camp. Yona succeeded in escaping, but when he returned to the forest, he found his beaten father and buried him in the forest. He was 17 years old. That same night, Yona made the decision to join the partisans. He was put through an intense training period of 2 weeks, during which he learned to make explosives, to hide and blend into his surroundings, and other ways to fight the Nazis.
His first mission was to place explosives on the train tracks in order to disrupt the supply chain to the Nazi soldiers. The explosive needed to be lit manually by fuse. He was successful in his mission and managed to blow up 4 supply caravans.
He was awarded a rifle as a prize and was allowed to transfer to a different unit. They lived in bunkers beneath the earth, where they had stoves cut from trees to keep warm while trying to deal the extreme cold of 35 degrees below zero. They survived in the bunkers for a year and a half.
In 1944, the Russians took control of the area where the partisans were located. Yona was released for a short vacation and afterwards enlisted in the Red Army. He was trained as a thief and sent to Belarus as a Russian soldier to fight the Nazis. Yona was the only Jew out of many people of different backgrounds such as Russians, Mongolians and Bukhareans, and was also the most knowledgeable as he had been privileged the opportunity of a formal education in a school. He was eventually promoted to deputy sergeant. He served as a driver until he was released from his position in May 1948 and then traveled to Vilna by way of Moscow in 2 weeks, eating food rations along the way. While in Vilna, he got married and had 2 daughters, Osnat and Dela. In April 1957, they all moved to Warsaw, Poland, and after 3 months, they received permission to move to Israel. From Warsaw, they traveled to Italy, and from there they traveled by boat to Haifa.
His story is a story of true courage and heroism. The story of a fighter who was able to survive in extreme conditions while constantly surrounded by Nazis who wanted to kill Jews simply for being Jews.
בכפר בפונר. כשהמצב החמיר החליטה משפחתו לברוח מן הגטו והסתתרו במקומות מחבוא ויערות באזור בלרוס, כשהם משחדים לקבלת עזרה עם הזהב של יד.